Well, Houston is considered the #1 city for sex trafficking. Since January, KPRC2 has been bringing you stories and hosting conversations on the work being done to fight the problem in our community.
Human trafficking occurs in every corner of Houston. No community is immune. And right now we have an update on a survivor of human trafficking we first introduced you to last year. Since then, Rhonda Kuykendall made the choice to face her trafficker. This comes decades after the abuse. Here's Zach Lashway with the story.
A mother-daughter date to look at wedding dresses ends abruptly.
And I get a text message from TDCJ saying there's a warrant out for your trafficker's arrest. Immediately my daughter says, "Mom, what's wrong?"
A lot to comprehend. Rhonda Kuykendall did not want to ruin the moment, but was consumed by anxiety.
Did he hurt someone else? He had been living in El Paso and he violated his parole. I was invited to the parole revocation hearing.
This would be the first time Rhonda would face the man who trafficked her more than 4 decades ago.
We were 10 feet apart.
What was that moment like?
It was gut-wrenching because I stared him down, wanting him to give me eye contact. It was extremely empowering.
But life since the abuse was heavy and still is.
It's almost impossible for victims to get over it because we're always confronted with it when we least expect it. So at the age of 10 years old, I was trafficked by a 4-time convicted sex trafficker. I was flown from Houston out to Lubbock.
Do you remember that first interaction?
I can tell you down to what I was wearing. Yes, I do. I remember it vividly.
And once you got up to Lubbock, it was a weekend of abuse.
It was a whole weekend of abuse, and the first thing he did was bring out cigarettes and wine, bottles of wine.
By Monday morning, Rhonda was back in the classroom, no questions asked. Rhonda's abuse took place 10 years after the trafficker's first conviction in Texas. At the time, human trafficking charges did not exist.
It wasn't codified in language in the penal code until the year 2000. So his convictions back then were sexual assault by a child, aggravated sexual assault by a child.
Abuse of children by this man would continue.
He was then convicted in Kansas, and then in California, and then back in Texas in 1991.
He spent years in prison and was released in 2006. He then violated his parole and would return to prison with a chance at conditional release every year. His freedom came in 2015.
I took that opportunity to really focus my life on the lived experience with social justice advocacy.
Although the statute of limitations on her case passed, Rhonda dedicated her adult life to helping survivors. Whether it's lobbying for human trafficking legislation in Austin or studying for her master's in social work to continue her education.
Through lived experience, I know what it's like.
As for that text message she received last year, the process took about 6 months, but Rhonda says justice prevailed. She learned of the news through another text message
from TDCJ that said, guess what? We're revoking his parole. He's going back to prison. And this has never happened before. He's not eligible for parole for 5 years.
Will you be back in the courtroom in 5 years?
Absolutely. I'm never going to give up. I'm going to outlast him.
Rhonda says trauma from trafficking is devastating, but it's the silence that kills, and she encourages everyone to speak up. In Houston, Zach Lashway, KPRC 2 News.
And as the adage goes, if you see something, say something. Authorities encourage you to save the human trafficking hotline number in your phone. Here it is if you want to do that, 888-373-7888. If you suspect a situation of trafficking, you can report it anonymously. If it's an emergency, just call 911. At click2houston.com right now, there are several articles with resources to help if you just search human trafficking right there on the homepage.